Hello, everyone. I want to welcome you to Make Magazine and our Makers of Makerspace session today. We'll be talking with about 7 people who manage makerspaces in the U.S., and we're really happy to have you join us. There'll be time at the end for questions, and I hope it's a pretty interactive session. I wanted to mention before we get into this that we have kind of relaunched a new site, Makerspace.com, which is really a listing of makerspaces. We started this back in 2013 and didn't particularly attend it well, and we kind of gone in and cleaned it up. And if you have a makerspace, please enter it in Makerspace.com or see if we already have it and update your information. One of the questions I've gotten over the years is just how many makerspaces are there? And it's really hard. There's been various groups that have attempted to pull this together but there's thousands at least somewhere between and I really don't care what we call them, FabLabs, Makerspaces, Hackerspaces, but these sort of community spaces, library spaces, college spaces, where people can do what we're doing here. Jeff, you just popped in.
Yeah.
How did you get in here? All right, I guess I'm getting my panelists in here now, but I'm going to just identify them and we'll have them each introduce themselves. We have John Rhymes of the Red Mountain Makers in Birmingham, Alabama. We have Dave Dalton of the Hammerspace Workshop in Kansas City. Tom Pupo of the Moonlighter FabLab in Miami, Florida. Donnell Layne, who's heads up the iMake Innovation Center Makerspace at Moreno Valley College in California. Jade Garrett, who is working on makerspaces in Portland and Wahoo, I believe. And Jondale Stratton, who's with Nox Makers, and Jeff Johnson of Chatt Lab in Chattanooga, and Jeremy Hanson of Seattle Makers in Seattle, Washington. Welcome all of you to this panel discussion, and it's great to see you. Why don't we use that same order? John, will you kick us off and give us an idea about Birmingham, Red Mountain Makers?
Yes, sir. I'm John Rhymes. I'm chair of Red Mountain Makers in Birmingham, Alabama. So we're Birmingham's nonprofit makerspace. We were started by a group of 4 friends who had a vision back in 2012. They spent a year and a half building a community, and then we opened our original location back in October of 2013. February of 22, we moved into our current location. So we now have 7,800 square feet in downtown Birmingham. So, and have some studio spaces that cover a good part of our rent, and have about 80 members or so now, split between makers and key holders. And so we're volunteer run, other than having a part-time position to manage classes. We did 179 classes last year, and so that's a big ask for volunteers. So we've got a little money going to them. And I guess one thing that's interesting is we do not have any of our original founders still active. So we've rotated. So there are 3 of us that have been with it since 2014, but our 3 of our board are joined back in 2014, but the rest of the board, the other 6 people, have all joined in the last 4 years or so.
Okay. Thank you, John. I appreciate that. Dave Dalton from Hammerspace Workshop in Kansas City.
Hi, Dale. Good to see you again.
Good to see you.
Well, here in Kansas City, Hammerspace Workshop is kind of an odd bird. We're a for-profit makerspace, and we are run here by our staff with 7 members. We teach classes throughout the week as well as on the weekends. And we typically have about 100 members of our space at any given time, plus or minus a dozen or so in any direction, depending on the season. And in addition to normal makerspace activities of using our 17,000 square feet that has everything from 3D printers to woodworking and blacksmithing and silversmithing and a large spray booth, to our digital fabrication services using things like laser cutters, CNC machines, and other automated tools as a, cut and go sort of service where you can send in your files, and if you're a member, next time you're in, pick up your parts and start using them. Or if you are a community member or client, we do shipping and, micro manufacturing up to thousands of parts. So.
Hey, thank you, Dave. Tom Pupo in Miami, Moonlighter Makerspace.
Hey, Dale. Thanks for the invite again. Tom Pupo, Executive Director of Moonlighter FabLab, and my wife and I co-founded this space back in 2015. We were originally in Wynwood, and then just during the pandemic, we actually signed a partnership agreement with the city of Miami Beach to move into this space, which is a city-owned property. And it's about the same size as John's, around 7,500 square feet. And we've been really focusing in on STEAM education as the driver for our space. So we still have basically the little studios for people to rent out and the memberships for the main space. But really our main focus is on the educational programs that we run in school sites. We actually have partnerships where we go to the school during school hours. And then we also have programs that happen, enrichment programs that happen after school and during business hours at our location as well. And then aside from all of that, we actually serve as kind of like a design agency where we take our members and our students and we partner them with local social impact projects. So we give the members and students a real world project to tackle and get that under their belt, and then also solve some, big problems for the local organizations, nonprofits, and civic organizations in our city. So we're a 501c3 nonprofit as of 2019, and we're continuing to, focus on the policy route and the partnership with the city and the education as our main focus for the driver.
Great. Donnell Layne, Moreno Valley College, the iMake Innovation Center there, which recently was flooded out, but you're waiting to bring it back. You can tell us that story too, Donnell.
Yes, it's really fun to spend $500,000. I have to say, no matter how bad the reasoning is, it is fun. I have to say that. So we got a chance to actually upgrade a lot of our equipment. So who am I? I'm Donnell Layne, coming to you guys from California, Southern California. I'm at Moreno Valley College, that is in Moreno Valley, which is a part of the Inland Empire. So that's where most of the shipping of products, once they hit LA and they hit that big shipping region or the of LA, they actually come through the Inland Empire, then disperse out through America. So with that, we have a Riverside Community College district. We are a community college, in which case in 2016, we won a grant with the U.S. Department of Education for about $6.1 million to build out a makerspace. I did not arrive. I was in Chicago building charter schools. I did not arrive in Moreno Valley until about 2018, in which case we partnered up to bring that project to fruition. It's as you guys all know, the makerspace arena, it's a special arena. Sometimes you look around and people are asking you, what is a makerspace? And that was the environment that I walked into. And so we were charged with changing the region. And so we had to build a 39-foot mobile makerspace. And so we converted an RV, ripped out the inside and replaced that all with laser cutters, vinyl printers, a design area, had a satellite on top for internet, had the solar panels so that we can keep the laser cutters always on, right? Because you don't want the ink drying in the tubes. So anyone that's in the audience that's a part of a makerspace already knows what I'm talking about with those vinyl printers. So After we got our initial grant, we built out the mobile makerspace first, then the 4,150 square foot static facility on campus, in which case we're charged with basically increasing the number of non-traditional STEM students going into STEM-based career pathways or academic pathways. In which case, at this point, we can barely get, or at least before the flood, we could barely get the kids out of the makerspace. And that was the big thing. Like, how can we make a safe space? And I want to say that's the real magic of our space. So I heard a lot of the similarities in what we do around programming, around, working with the community and spreading the word on projects, social impact projects. We're working on fighting food insecurity by growing food in the makerspace. And so that led into a secondary project where we're now building an outdoor classroom. We won another $5 million grant from the U.S. Department of Education. And now we're embarking on that piece to extend the makerspace into the outside so that we can further the experiential learning while also touching on that social emotional part, because we're seeing more of our students dealing with that emotional baggage from COVID and coming through COVID, and now trying to re-normalize wherever this new normal is with AI on the side. So that, in a nutshell, that's all that we're doing now. And I'm sure we have more to talk about, guys. So thank you for the time.
Hey, thank you, Donnell. Next up is Jade Garrett. Jade.
Dale, thanks for having me. Donnell, it's a hard follow-up, like right after talking about what you're
He's
doing.
always hard to follow.
But I'm the founder of Positive Deviancy. We're a power connector organization for the Department of Energy's American-Made Network. And I started the Makerspace at my university, George Mason, in 2015 as a student. And since started out as like a 1,500 square foot facility, and now it's a 25,000 square foot space in multiple buildings throughout the university. I left to be the GM of Tech Shop in DC, and we know what happened with that. But then I left to become Nation of Makers' first employee. So many of you I probably met. But right now, currently, what I'm working on is more specific topic focused, developing makerspaces, specifically around energy and entrepreneurship. So, yeah,
Great.
2 projects that are going on right now. One is in Oahu on ancestral lands called Inahu Pua'a, where it's going to have like an energy innovation showcase. And then also one in Portland where we're working with an accelerator program called NWX, which is the climate tech program for Black founders in the built environment. So very excited to be here, and thank you.
Thank you, Jade. Nice to really have you. Jondale Stratton is of Nox Makers. Jondale.
Hi, thanks for the invite. My name is Jondale Stratton. I'm been a member of Nox Makers for 10 years. It's existed for about 13 years. About 13 years ago, there was a post on Craigslist saying, hey, has anybody heard of this hackerspace thing? We should get together. They started meeting in restaurants and people's houses. And then from there, got a space. About 10 years ago when I joined, there was 20 members. And today we're at about 370 members.
Wow.
And so square footage, about 10,000 square foot. Our growth, we've had a few spurts over the years, but for the most part, it's just a little bit of growth every month, somewhere between 2 and 20 members a month, consistently for many years now. And so we were really lucky to actually grow even through COVID. So even though we shut down, people still wanted to join. So So we're nonprofit, community-based, 501c3. We've made the decision not to have any staff. Everyone's a volunteer, from board members down to all the members. We have one level of membership. Everyone is the same. We all consider ourselves just a normal member of Nox Makers. Some of us volunteer a little more than others. So that's where we're at.
That's great. Thank you, Jondale. Next, we have Jeff Johnson of Chat Lab. And I just want to acknowledge Jeff helped me put this together a bit. And Jeff also is the moderator of the Facebook Makerspace group. And we've kind of worked it very informally, but over the years, checking in on this. And this is one of the things that I think he's wanted to do as well as I do for a while. Welcome, Jeff.
Hi, everyone. I'm Jeff. I'm from ChatLab Makerspace. We've been around since about 2017. Somebody from Nox Makers reached out when we had shut down and said, "Hey, you guys need to start back up again." And the guy that originally started it, he was out of the picture. So I said, "Well, here, let me run with it." And that was back in 2017. So right now we have a little under 100 members. We have about 5,300 square feet, and we're now in that phase of membership where we're trying to consolidate. We're trying to get rid of, your first couple of years, you'll just take any piece of equipment. Well, now we're trying to get rid of
you're going to say
equipment.
You take any kind of member.
Well, we went through that. And now we're trying to be more selective and having processes that those that cause drama, we try to just encourage them to kindly leave. But we're trying to control getting more volunteers. We go up to Nox Makers every once in a while and we see what they're doing, and we go, I've had people, hey, we need to do what they're doing. If you're ever in Knoxville, you get a chance to see Nox Makers. They're a great space. They're about 3 times the size of us, and they've given us a lot of good ideas. Jondale's been a huge help for me, helping us get our laser cutters, straight from China, where some people are paying $15,000 for a cutter. We're able to get it for like $5,000. And it's just been a great relationship with Nox Makers. But we're slowly growing, trying to learn how to control the burnout. I got to meet Dave when he was in Chattanooga for NomCon, and I've learned a lot from him. He's really my I got a serious man crush on that guy because he's got some really cool things going on. We're like Nox Makers. We're a 501c3, all volunteer. All of our members have the same status, although we do offer discounts for like friends, family, and college students. But we're just plugging along, and our 5-year plan is to hopefully get our own building, and but we'll see how that goes.
That's great. The Jeremy Hanson from Seattle Makers, our last Makerspace to check in here. You might be muted, Jeremy.
And I'm muted. There we go. I'm Jeremy Hanson, and I run a Makerspace just northwest of downtown Seattle, and we have been in operation since 2017. I, like many here, owe pretty much everything to other makerspaces and Makerspace operators. I've been a member or a volunteer of 3 different spaces in Seattle, and kind of studied them for a while and tried to figure out why they could ever possibly close, and then started one and then found out quickly, and been trying to kind of figure out the best ways to resolve some of those issues. As you know, it's a challenging, it's such a huge value, and very easy to pay for some people, and then it's a considerable expense for others. So we've been doing a lot to tweak our membership. A couple of things we've done is added rollover. So the longer you're a member, you can get more credit, more value to take classes, use machines. We have a couple different tiers if you're just doing sewing or something versus, a lot of CNC milling or something like that. We also offer scholarships and things like that. I'll probably get into that, but we have 200 members now. We're thrilled to be in a brand new building. It's like 12,000 square feet. It's an old funky lab building that, we started in almost 2,000 square feet, really cramped, 2 outlets per room, and it was kind of falling apart. COVID was almost shut us down, but like many groups, we mounted a COVID effort and ended up right next to the biggest homeless encampment in Seattle, which was, we just couldn't operate. So we basically put all of our COVID money into this warehouse. And, if we're going to close down, we might as well give it a shot. And we actually grew quite a bit during COVID, and outgrew that space last year. So as of 4 months ago, we've got a new 12,000 square foot space. So that was doubling and then tripling in the last 7 years. It's a bit of a stretch, but it's got ventilation. We're looking forward to doing metal ceramics. We have a better space for kids now. I mean, it's kind of hard to have kids in the same room where you can just walk into the wood shop. So a lot of different programs, and now we're kind of juggling. Now that we can do all the things, how do we get all the things moving all at once? We are a for-profit LLC, and we're working to transition to a nonprofit model. We've formed another group called Community Makers. It's made up of the board members. Board members are made up of members. They've applied for nonprofit status, and we're developing programs to start with the ultimate goal of transitioning over completely. Yeah, I think I covered. Is that all the details?
Okay, good. Well,
Yeah.
good. I think that
For having
gives
me, yeah.
everyone a good introduction to the different kinds of spaces, and you can almost see the decisions that people are working on: space, structure, governance, et cetera. I want to welcome everyone that's on Zoom here, watching the panel here. My thing says about 70 people are on, and then out through YouTube and others. There's more watching live streams. If you do have a question, there's a raise hand function. Please feel free to ask it, and we'll try to get to those or put it in chat. But as I told folks here, I think the main goal is to see how we can learn from each other, talk to each other about common areas of interest, and I guess just it's kind of a way to begin. But like, what's a specific success in the last year or so? Something you've done or a program you've tried that you said that worked, and you'd like other people to know about it. Just jump in, or wave your hand if you want to just go. Jeff.
Yeah, I've got one. During COVID, we were about 60 members pre-COVID, and then we had a drop off about 20 members. We were able to talk a local tech, one of the tech zines, talking about Chattanooga stuff, and we told them, we said, we're we had 60, the 20 members that dropped off. They said, hey, you know what, we're going to put it on pause. So we told the magazine, we said, hey, this is our space. We have 60 members, but we're going to be capping it at 100. And then after that, after it went out, it was a really popular hit, and we grew about 40% just from the perceived scarcity type of thing. So that was a nice little way to jump our membership, and that was very handy.
Okay, great. Anyone else?
I just wanted to say that, like, during COVID, right, a lot of makerspaces actually turned into like PPA fabrication facilities, where like seeing that rally was beyond amazing, and also seeing how that kind of kept the communities together, and then the evolution of transitioning back. I mean, that what better purpose to like,
No, thank you, Jade. That's true. I mean, I did this thing called Plan C, where we were interviewing Makerspace leaders, because I thought it was so amazing what all those folks were doing, and that, largely a lot of people didn't know about that. And I kind of wish communities still would look at that and say, that's the potential of what a makerspace can do, how it can organize people and fill really kind of urgent needs. So thanks for bringing that up. Anybody else?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes, it's Donnell here. If you build it, they won't come. I want to say that because, when I first got there, everyone thought that, oh, you're going to build this like super cool facility and everyone's going to show up. But then you get the question, what's a makerspace? I'm sorry. And so that's where this bus came in. So the outreach. So I wanted to put that on the forefront, that as much as I could present, as much as I could take the bus out, we reached about 20,000 kids that first year that we took the bus around the region. We were at race. We went to a NASCAR race with a full NASCAR at a full NASCAR track, and had this big old RV bus parked outside, and it's teal and white, and you got all these kids running to you, and you get 3D printers on the bus, and you got your satellite. It was such a cool thing. that we saw that this was that spark. And then all the kids running like, Mom, Dad, that's the bus from Moreno Valley College. And we're putting it in the parade, and people are cheering around the community. That's our college. So I just wanted to put that out there, that I don't think you can do enough outreach when it comes to a makerspace, because people really don't know. Still to this day, I think truly how usable, how functional, how needed makerspaces are right now.
Yeah, that's a great point. So outreach. And sometimes just going out and doing stuff.
We've been doing some
John.
similar.
I'll say John and then Jeremy. Okay. John, you're muted.
Okay, so we have our facility with all this wonderful equipment. So we're looking at how we can use that. So we started a workforce development program in partnership with our local university. Because there's such a need for skilled trades, and to really show people that there's more than just going to college and getting a mound of student loans. I mean, if you can get a skilled trade, you can do a whole lot for a limited investment. So we've got 12 students from 3 high schools that we're showing how to do a lot of different things.
And how often do they come in the makerspace, or how do they use it?
I'd say every Saturday for about 3 months is the one cohort. So we did one last fall. We've got one going currently. And so right now they're building some cabinets for the makerspace, and learning that skill, learning a little bit of welding, getting exposure to all the different things. And it uses the Hammer Math program, which was started by Perry Wilson, who was dyslexic and learned math on the job site, how to do fractions and all that.
Yeah, that sounds great. I think this is an untapped use for makerspaces. But Jeremy, I wanted to go to you here.
I'm curious. I'm definitely very curious about that. I was going to mention a couple things. We've also been kind of bringing a makerspace to the people. We go to the Fremont Fair, which is about 10 minutes away, and set up a booth. One, to talk to people about the makerspace and do like we've got a portable laser and 3D printing pens and laser cut earrings. Just have people do an activity and find out about it. And 2, we started to do a maker market, to have people try out selling things at the market, see if they're going to sell. And 80% goes back to the artist, and 20% hopefully covers the booth. So we're hoping to get that out there. And I mean, it's a slog to go there every Sunday to drag a tent and try and sell at the market, but with the whole community selling a bunch of different things, kind of lightens the load a little bit. And I was also going to mention, we've done open houses where some of the team presents demos, and it's almost like wandering through a whole like a wonderland of what you can do. There's screen printing t-shirts happening over here, and then there's laser cut projects, and we got a pretty good turnout. Turns out flyers work. We posted them all over and got probably over 100 people coming through, and did a big membership sale, and that really activated the community.
That's great. Anyone else, particular, Dave?
Sure. Yeah, we've had a lot of great successes recently. One of the students were mentioned. We've partnered with North Kent City High School's alternative education program, which has been really cool. I don't know how familiar everyone is with alternative education high schools, but it's usually a separate building where kids who might have had behavioral problems or other sorts of obstacles can go in an attempt to kind of save their opportunity to graduate without getting a GED or some other path to graduation by finishing school. And some of the most amazing teachers you will ever meet work in these schools, and they've really kind of got the maker, idiom internalized, because they're throwing everything at the wall to see what sticks. And fortunately, one of these teachers was in one of our classes and just was overwhelmed with the idea of giving kids agency in their education. And that's such a huge thing in the maker environment, is that why this works as an educational tool is because so frequently we're feeding an AI, we're just shoving information into them and hoping that it forms something in their head. And it's so much more productive to be able to find the spark and then feed that spark fuel. And you get them in an environment where you tell them maybe for the first time, what do you want to do at school today? And so we've had these kids here for the past 2 months, 2 days a week for their entire school day. So they've actually dedicated Tuesdays and Thursdays to coming over here to the space with any of the kids that want to put aside their studies for that day and instead come over here. And I've watched very, very quiet kids get really excited about things that they never knew that they could touch. And I mean, that's great, because so much of what we do is, we're not an educational makerspace, and we're not even really a youth makerspace. We're really aimed at the 18 and over crowd, with blacksmithing and silversmithing and woodworking and stuff. And these kids are from an environment where they have no resources at their school at all. They don't have a wood shop. They don't have anything there that's an elective. And so to be able to give them one last little glimpse of a hopeful educational environment where there's like that spark to be able to want to go on and enjoy the learning process as part of what you do that's fun for you, not a thing that you're being made to do. And it's great to be reminded of that. Plus, we've had a bunch of great classes recently. A bunch of fun metalworking stuff. We're doing all sorts of fancy blacksmithing. And a big hit has been our barbecue swords, which are kind of ridiculous, but great fun. Some back here, we've been doing little
skewers,
blacksmithing skewers, but we're doing them in the style of a sword with a little bottle opener for the pommel. So those are nice. Unexpected hit. We can't teach that class enough recently.
Oh, that's great. It's kind of always interesting how things like metalworking, finds new audiences. I'm gonna Jondale, I'll go to you next, but there was a sort of a clarification question. I'm not sure what, John, a Hammer math program, if you could put a link to that. Oh, you did. Okay.
Just dropped it.
Saw that. Yeah, thanks a lot. I'm interested in learning more about that too. Because, for kids, we can get them into making. If we could also get them into math, boy, it'd be a double win. Okay. Jondale, any new successes with you?
Yeah, well, I just wanted to reinforce what Jeremy said about the markets. We've started doing that recently, twice a year, and they've had a lot of success, and they've grown each time. I think anytime you have a public event like that, it comes off as a success. It's like energizes the members, and so it really gives us a lot of momentum moving forward as well. We've partnered with the city to do workshops and demos at the Dogwood Arts Festival, which is a very large 40 to 50,000 person event that happens in Knoxville every year. Anytime that we can have a public event like that, I think it's really great, and does more than just give exposure, but also energizes the members that you do have.
Yeah. It's very satisfying when someone comes up and realizes that this is available and they didn't know about it. It's just like something light goes off. Tom, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I was just going to add a little bit about partnerships. That's been really what has been the key driver for success over the last almost 10 years now for us. We meet people where they're at. We're actually doing probably a lot more outside of our space than we do in our space. So we've partnered with, the city on the educational programs we're running in the schools. We've partnered with a lot of different local festivals. So the Miami International Book Fair, the Coconut Grove Arts Festival. You know, we basically always have a presence in these other cultural events and activities. We've partnered with almost all of the museums. So we've done a permanent exhibition at the Museum of Discovery and Science in Fort Lauderdale. We've done activations at the Frost Science Museum. We have partnered with the Fairchild Botanical Garden to help them do a National Maker Challenge for a grant that they had with NASA for growing plants in space. So I think there's a lot of different stories there, but, you know, basically always partnering with another institution or organization that already has a base following or a base interest, and then showing them how the opportunities in a makerspace can be a huge resource for whatever it is that they're focused on, right? And so that helps build our network, it helps build their network, and those partnerships really are where we see a lot of innovation happen and a lot of interest build, just from unlocking the possibilities out of a makerspace. And that has actually led to us helping build out more makerspaces in different places across South Florida. So that's been the thing that we see as our North Star, is just partnering with a lot of organizations. It's not always necessarily just maker related. Like, we even partner with a poetry festival that, you know, helps reimagine ways of like distributing poems to everyone in Miami in April, right? So one of our directors actually designed a little poem reading robot and a poem receipt printer, you know, little quirky projects that, you know, people wouldn't automatically associate with a specific event or you know, community or circle of people, right? And just bringing that little delight of making to that space.
Yeah, that's great. Let me take a question from William Brooks, who's in the audience. And I'll phrase it this way. He wants to know kind of how close was your space's original idea to your, you know, for what you're doing, to how it is now. I mean, and, you know, how did you get from there to today? Like, what changed? And I guess another way, Tom, what you were saying made me think of a lot of maker spaces, I think, were kind of introverted spaces initially, and they had to learn to be extrovert, like to go out to the community, to relate to people. I remember talking, one thing I read is, you know, it's like going to a health fitness place, you know, and like nobody greets you or nobody says, you know, here's what we do here. It's like people don't just walk in and feel comfortable. They need someone to talk to them. So, but anyway, really just jump in. Kind of did your initial model have to change a lot over the years? John, I see you nodding. John Rhymes.
Yeah. The original model was, I think, a lot like an artist cooperative. It's very anarchistic, I guess. But all right, original fees back in 2013, 2014 was $20 a month, which that's not enough to be sustainable. Now we're in the low rent area. But the real pivot for us really was, COVID, and realizing that we could have a greater impact. And so that really led us to doing, we started doing regular classes, and that's something I think is very important for makerspaces, because that gives you the discipline of being consistent in social media, because you've got to be reaching out to people to fill the classes, getting your presence out there. And also that has helped us a lot in terms of grants, because most of our grants have been on the more art-focused side, and that's really supported by having all the classes that are giving people opportunities to create.
Thank you. Dave, has Hammerspace Workshop changed much since the beginning?
You know, you mentioned that, and it's funny. So we've been around for like 12 years, and we were at our first space for 6 years. We've been at our new space for another 6 years. And when we started the first space, we made promotional material, of course, before there was any space to talk about. But we knew what elements we wanted in there. And when it was time to move, we looked down at our old flyer and went, wow, like we did all of this stuff that we put in the initial flyer. It's all there. And we thought about what was there and what didn't work, what we wanted new. And when we moved into the new space, which was like 3 times as big, we drew a floor plan and we allocated space and we built it out. And, you know, no plan survives contact with the enemy for long. So there were little changes here and there. But then after 6 years, we went, pulled out the old plans and we looked at where everything had ended up after shuffling and reshuffling and reshuffling. And it was almost dead on exactly what we had done for our initial space plan. So we were super thrilled to see that we were at least thinking correctly when we laid out our initial wish plan for the space. And it incorporated a lot of things that we didn't own yet. And now that it's all there, it's nice that it's like, oh, and guess where it fit? Everything fit really nice, which was a wonderful shift. But I don't know how much we changed. I think initially we didn't foresee how much having an organized staff would really address some of those points you were making about it being an introverted sort of culture. We kind of grew out of the local hackerspace, which very much was if you didn't have a key and you didn't know it was there wasn't even any signage. Like it was in a cave underground that you had to go into the bat cave with an elevator to get there. So yeah, you can be forgiven for not knowing it was someplace you could come and join. And that was one of the major things we wanted to change when it went from being a hackerspace to a makerspace in a big building. And so we have a whole arrival experience here when you get to the space where the space itself is talking to you and the staff is, you know, aware that people are coming in. And we kind of put that burden not on the members who are working, but on the fact that there's always 3 to 4 to 5 people here who are busy working on things, and it's their job to say hello. And that, I think, makes a huge difference.
Well, that's great.
I
Anybody else have, Jeremy, were you?
Yeah, I agree. I thought it was so cool to find a bunch of nerds who were all about making, and it was kind of this secret group, but yeah, I was also intimidated. I was like, oh, there's a lot of experts here, so I don't know anything, and everybody's learning something though. So the more people can interact, and we decided to have somebody here every day that we're open. So we're not 24 hours, but we always have somebody to greet you, somebody with a name tag. We even laser etched our faces and put them up on the wall so you know who's who does what department. So there's a lot of communication, and I've heard from several members, like, this person made me feel that I'm so well. They started going in and pulling out components that I was looking for, and I felt like I was at home. So I think that makes a huge difference for people joining the space.
Yeah. You know, I mean, it's not original thought, but it's come for the equipment and stay for the community. You know,
yeah.
it's
well, and we're notoriously, I mean, Seattle's famous for kind of cold shoulder, head down. We do get a lot of transplants, but we're kind of a little pocket of community in a kind of introverted tech city.
Yeah. This is Dave Helmkamp is asking kind of a similar question, but he's more asking for use cases. And I guess I'm going to translate it into, you know, have the use cases changed, like either the members, different members coming, different kinds of uses that you didn't anticipate, which could be people that come with a business idea, could be students, could be, you know, others. Are you, you know, people like when you, Jeremy, you're talking about like the original cohort, or John, you know, that suddenly you're outside that group, and the people that you're attracting come for different reasons than what the original group came together.
I mean, I'm sure there was a huge evolution of kind of the expectation of what a maker was in 2011 or 2012, where, you know, it was little manageable projects or insanely large art cars and really nothing in between. And it was just, you were starting to blend the, you know, folks who were doing knitting and sewing with the people who are doing electronics and everything else. And now that's, you know, you were there for all of that. So it, you know, it's very much mainstream rather than fringe when it started. So I feel like the the culture drifted a little bit that way, in that it's no longer a fringe culture. It's more centrist, and a lot of people have weird hobbies now. And so the culture has become no less nerdy than it was, but we've got more nerds of more different stripes than we used to have.
Yeah.
And I think that's nice, largely.
Yeah, I agree with you, Dave.
And the other thing that I think is really interesting is how much different like the startup culture is now than it was 10 years ago. And the physical ideas that we're getting now are really interesting. And I think there was a lot of chaff in with the wheat for a long time. And Makerspaces bore the brunt of a lot of, well, here, you figure out this relatively useless idea and please help me. And now the ideas are, everyone is getting excited about so many different interesting new technologies that are growing almost faster than us old school early adopters can adapt to.
Yeah.
And that's exciting too, because we're seeing some of that velocity come out of all of it.
I'd love to see some examples of that, Dave, or just, that's a really good sign, if you will.
It feels different.
Right.
But like, I don't know, some fun synergy stuff has been working with like escape rooms and stuff to build really interesting interactive exhibits, which how makers love those. We love something that's large and flashy and serves no useful purpose other than pure enjoyment. So like those are these fun. People are finding that there's a community here that's a unique fit for real world problem solving, where you need to make this once, but it needs to be awesome, is a great place for makers to find a home and actually, everything from just a vocation to an actual career. To just fulfillment,
Yeah. Thank you, Dave. Does anybody else want to weigh in on that kind of use cases changing or users changing?
We have people come in all the time who, one of our core beliefs is to keep our focus, and we're largely non-commercial. And so we have people come in all the time who maybe are not a good fit, but luckily Knoxville is full of other organizations and other makerspaces and maker-related businesses that fulfill those needs. And so we try to partner with those and make those connections so that when they do come in, we could say, well, this is the good fit for you, because we want to welcome everyone, but we want them to be happy there. And so we want to make sure that they can go to the places that they want, that they fit best.
Yeah.
One thing I was going to add is we just recently opened up a small gallery as part of our space. And so being kind of like a cultural space or hub in the city is also important, not only for driving new memberships, but just driving interest to the space and getting more people aware of what a makerspace is. And we've found some supporters from just that activity, having a little exhibition space that is open to the community for the walk-ins and giving them a tangible example of what's possible when, creativity meets the access to these tools, right?
Yeah.
And so it's constantly revolving every quarter, and it becomes like something to look forward to in the community for them to come in, and even if they're not interested in building something, they're here to see what the next thing is and to meet new makers.
Yeah. I have a question here from Doug Kimber, and I kind of like it. What tips are there for encouraging group projects and to help people make friends and make it a more friendly environment? I know I've run into some makerspace, like they'd have like Project Wednesday night or something, and they'd all have, people that don't have something to do come in to do something, because not everybody has a project. Do you any of you do that?
We do a thing periodically. We have a Bladesmiths club because, of course, doing fancy swords and things is a lot more time consuming and highly specific than like the general blacksmithing and, silver working stuff. And so we don't really, it's not a class so much as it is a subgroup of our members who have a meeting night. And it's kind of fun to get them all together and go, what do we feel like? Like, let's all just do a thing that none of us know how to do and be bad at it together until one of us figures out how to be good at it. And that's a great way. You know, it's an unclass, because there is no teacher. Nobody is really good at the thing we try when we try and do something in that class. It's a, can this happen? And, you know, that's always fun, because there's no stress on failure. It's almost expected.
Yeah.
So those have been a fun success.
That's a nice idea. Anybody else have any kind
Yeah.
of group things?
Something,
Jeff.
yeah, something I would throw out there. Sometimes, you know, as a space leader, you can't really, you may not come up with these projects, but you'll get these introverts that said, "Hey, you know, what do you think about this?" And as a you know, somebody that helps run the space, you try to culture that. You say, "That is a great idea. And, you know, what do you need to make this happen?" And then you talk about it to other makers, and you say, "Hey, talk to Tim about this," you know, and get that going. So that can kick off a few group projects, but and this is pretty boring, but it is necessary. You know, we do about once a month or once every 2 months, we do a group clean project where we'll have everybody come in on a Sunday from 1 to 3 or any of those that are available, and we you know, work on various things that need improvement. And that's a great way of pulling people in that may not have normally been interested in helping on a project. You know, they feel a little guilty, you know, maybe they didn't clean the wood shop as well as they should have every time. So they come to these events, and then it's a great way to socialize and work on a group project of just cleaning or improving an area.
Okay, great.
And one of the things that we do on the college campus is every month you have some day, right? If it's like World Something Day, it's, you know, it's this day, that day. So we utilize each month, we look through each month, and we identify different days that we want to celebrate or learn about something. And then we create a project that's in reference to that. One of the easy ways is simply to select a particular day, let's say like Nature Day, and then, you know, have a student, a community member, a faculty member, a staff member select a machine in the makerspace to utilize to create something for Nature Day, right? Like, so you can use a vinyl printer, print out a poster, a 3D printer. And then, so when going back to that question on changing it from the original piece, originally we were like a standard makerspace, but then we realized we had to pull in the faculty that had all these different disciplines. And so we switched it to have like these specialized areas of like, for like learning modalities. So you have like the bio area, so that our biological professors can come in and utilize the equipment in that area, bring in the students, and then people from the community have access to microscopes as well. 3D printing in the textiles area, right? Like for our classroom, it's more of a multimodal classroom where we convert it into augmented reality, virtual reality space. We have 4 85-inch monitors, so it's like TV, so it's like a movie night space as well. So it's now turned into a true intersection of like the exploration of learning, like, which I think is really what a makerspace is. And I think it's really a beautiful space. So as time is running down, I wanted to make sure I said that from the college campus perspective, that we have individuals from the community coming together, students from K through Gray. We have the faculty and staff all coming in and working together and doing some great things.
That's great. I want to, Chris Wessling asked a question that he's hoping to find funding and start new smaller spaces for STEM education programs in nearby areas. And, you know, those have been around since the old days. This is what, you know, what's different about makerspace management. I don't know if we'll necessarily go there, but I thought I'd eventually throw this to Jade. But, you know, we're seeing makerspaces inside of organizations, and that's sometimes the way to do this. Libraries, we're always kind of the first to do this, but hospitals, I mean, we're seeing them in hospitals. In fact, one of them in Cedar Rapids, Iowa, had a hospital maker fair this week, which is pretty cool, in their makerspace. So sometimes after school programs, science centers and other places. So, you know, if you don't have to pay for space, if you don't have to, you know, they need people to run programs, but they don't often have the whole thing. But I thought I'd throw this to Jade. Do you have any thoughts on that? I kind of particularly on smaller spaces rather than, you know, broader community spaces.
Yeah. I mean, being able to find the place where your community members are, I think is the first critical, piece of the puzzle in terms of like, looking at a larger space later on down the road, right? So, you don't necessarily have to have the space, but you have to find the community members first. So that is my advice on, kind of seeing how do they gather, like how do they interact, and also what are the things that are missing where you would want to like find, let's say, an additional space, and it doesn't have to be one, to be able to, kind of build out that network or that ecosystem until you have enough validation to actually get a physical space. So
yeah. And I mean, to piggyback off of that, I mean, a lot of what we do is actually take our teaching staff to sites that have built out a makerspace, but they don't have the expertise to fully utilize it. So, we bring out our teaching staff and then teach the teachers there how to use the tools and equipment that's there, and while simultaneously running a program for the students that are in that space. And we've done this at the youth level and at the university level. So it's a problem that's pretty rampant across industries. But, if you have a core group of people who are really good at what they do, then you use that as an export to build more maker spaces around the city.
Yeah. It's kind of interesting. Samuel Sweely asks, are you more cautious in the makerspace with the closure of Tech Shop many years ago, size equipment membership? And someone asked me this a few days ago. He runs kind of a professional makerspaces. It's like, well, how are makerspaces doing? And, the closure of a makerspace, it's like, there's closures of restaurants, there's closures of all kinds of businesses, and there's often many reasons why they close.
Mm-hmm.
Tech Shop had its own reason. It was trying to replicate itself very fast without even getting, the first model, working well. And some makerspaces run out of energy. The people that found it, burn out. And it's a lot of work. It's hard. I mean, almost anything to start is hard. So I'm happy that you guys are successful and doing well. And I'm sorry to see when spaces close, but it's not necessarily a general statement on makerspaces. So if anybody wants to respond to that, they're welcome to.
Just that burnout is absolutely real, as someone who's been doing this for more than a decade. But yeah, no, I would say that's the number one reason for losing your super community member, the one that everyone always looks at when someone needs a solution to a problem, is that eventually it's very hard to be that person all the time.
Right.
So, that the cultivating that community of active, participants in the space is always, it's the magical challenge. I don't think any of us knows quite what the formula is for that. We're just happy when it happens. And we try and point at things that might be the reason why we have all these great people willing to give so much of themselves. But really, when you get right down to it, it's that people are awesome. And, and we need not to kill them, extracting that awesomeness. That's the hard thing too.
Yeah. But I think John brought it up earlier that his founders are no longer running the space, and it's not necessarily succession planning, but governance is a pretty important thing, and a lot of early spaces ignored that. But if you didn't rotate people into positions of leadership, they're going to burn out. And the kind of makerspace that really burned out was the one like do it all person that was going to empty the trash, sweep the floors, fix the machines, and welcome new members. They just don't last very long. So somehow you have to break it down, find other people to do things. And somehow your makerspace has to have enough resources to be able to, whether it's volunteers or paid, to be able to do those things. So it's kind of very interesting. Well, listen, let me give you each, as we're kind of on the hour, I appreciate your time. I'd just like to give you a closing thought if you want to just share something that sparked your interest here. So many good questions and thoughts in the comments here. Can't acknowledge them all, but I think that people are seeing that community is really core to this, that isn't, something you take for granted. It's a hard thing to do, and just as a to create culture is difficult. So that'll be maybe my closing thought. But any of you want to? I'd love to give you a chance to share a closing thought.
I don't know.
Jade?
I don't know if you can create culture. I think you have to just support it and enable it. And hopefully you grow the right one.
Yeah. When it emerges.
A makerspace can be as simple as two people putting together a list of tools that they have and sharing it, all the way up to a multi-million-dollar tech shop. So I think it's just important to, start, create community, make sure you have fun, and get more people involved. And there's no real place to be. I'm definitely far beyond my original vision. And I think wherever you're at is fine, and just focus on making stuff and meeting people.
Right.
To add to that, there's no one answer to, how to be successful with a makerspace, right? There's so many different ways to do it. And sometimes it's being in the right place at the right time and having a little luck. Being with a community, catching the eye of the right people. Sometimes it's just that. So the makerspaces that go out, sometimes they just have bad luck.
Yeah, they do. That's true.
Yeah.
Same with business. Jade, do you have a closing thought?
Yeah. I've seen my share of makerspaces spin up and then also kind of fade out or burn out, let's put it that way. But what I haven't seen is actually the community or the people that sustain it, like, fade away. So, I've seen them kind of like morph into other, different like meetings or gatherings, to kind of like fill that need until it's there. So like, just find your tribe, your island of misfit toys, kind of, or, like figure out the people that want to like go with you on your trajectory for like what you want to build and make. So
that's great. John, how about you?
Yeah, it really is all about the people. You can find lots of users, but really finding and nurturing the people that are really the core of the space is so important. And also, I just say networking, going out into the community, making the connections in the art community, in the education community, in the startup community. Get your name out to all the people, and you can find some good connections. And even now, we still have people saying, "I didn't know we had this in Birmingham."
Yeah.
But there are certain people that if they walk in the door, they connect. It's just a matter of finding them.
Tom, how about you? Closing thought.
For me, it's a bit of a two-parter. We did a lot of precedent studies before we opened our space. We went out and visited a lot of makerspaces, and anytime we travel, we go and visit the local makerspace there. And we found a couple of models that we really admire and look at as a model. Milwaukee Makerspace, Will Holman's OpenWorks, and just meeting these different leaders who are approaching it a completely different way, but then also taking all the things that you learn from those different spaces and finding the thing that works best for your specific community. Because it's not a one size fits all. So, see who you're serving, and then take that chest of tools that you've seen in other spaces and pick the things that you think will really work well in your community.
Yeah. Jeff, how about you?
I guess the one thing I would say is for those that are starting out with spaces, don't be discouraged with the amount of involvement you get from new members. I would say maybe 1 in 5 are going to be socially active. Come to your meetings all the time and be involved. 1 in 10 might actually take charge of something. But I will say that 50% of our members are there just for their own personal interest, working on little projects, but they're the core that help us pay the rent and pay the bills. Yeah. So that's that. You can't, we talk about community, and the community is great, and when everybody gets involved, but we've got a huge amount of 50% core that just come and work on projects. Another 25% are your ninja members. You never see them, but they keep making the payments, and the other 25% are active. So don't be surprised if you're starting a space and you don't see everybody coming to every meeting all the time.
Right. Did I get everybody, or is there anybody that I missed?
I got one.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got like 3 small ones. So keep dreaming. So take them underwater with your projects, take them to the moon, take them to Mars, take them to the asteroid belt, take them to Jupiter, and keep going, right? Always push the limit, because if you're not doing it, then why are you in a makerspace? Just asking. So do money. Know your numbers. Know how much things cost. Track things. Plan for your maintenance. Plan for replacement. Also know how you're impacting people. How many people come to your things. Know the numbers, because that's what's going to lead to more money down the road. And the third part, which I'm working on now, is try to come up with some kind of product that you can sell. Like, you're in a space with all these geniuses that are building things. Like, let's come together and build something so that we can sell it and pay for the space. That's what I'm saying. So working on it now with our folks here. I know there's some IP involved with that, but that would be my advice to the folks out there. And thank you for joining us today.
Okay. Well, good. Well, thank you all. And I think one of the key pieces of advice is this is a community that shares the good and bad with each other, is willing to talk and learn from each other. And I think that it really is, there's no guidebook that you can follow to do this exactly the way other people have done it. You have to learn from them by talking to them, visiting other spaces. But it's really fantastic that we have these spaces in our communities. I'm really excited to see them in places like community colleges. And I think, how many kids would never walk into a makerspace that walk into Moreno Valley College and say, "Oh, this is something I want to do." So we need more and more of those. But thank you all for being here, and I'm just glad to have you be part of this. I'd love to do it again soon, or figure out some other ways to keep in touch. It's really valuable to hear from you and learn from you. So good day, everyone.